नमो जनाणम। सर्वप्रथम आज इस व्याख्यान उपस्थित आप सभी श्रोताओं को मेरी ओर से सादर जय जिनेंद्र, नमस्कार, प्रणाम। बंधुओं, जैसा कि हम सभी को ज्ञात है कि बीएल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडोलॉजी दिल्ली द्वारा जैन आर्ट एंड एस्थेटिक्स पर चल रही इस व्याख्यान श्रृंखला में आज हम सभी आदरणीय डॉक्टर पवन जैन जी के द्वारा जैन पेंटिंग्स पर तीसरा व्याख्यान सुनेंगे। मैं आज के इस कार्यक्रम के मंगल प्रारंभ, स्वागत विधि और वक्ता महोदय को आमंत्रित करने हेतु पीएल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ इंडोलॉजी के डायरेक्टर महोदय आदरणीय प्रोफेसर भैयाचौड़ त्रिपाठी सर को आमंत्रित करता हूं और उनसे आग्रह करता हूं कि आज के इस कार्यक्रम का शुभारंभ करते हुए संचालन करें। प्रणाम सर, आप अपना माइक अनम्यूट।
धन्यवाद है इंद्र जी। हमारे साथ में उपस्थित समस्त श्रोतावृंद का और मुख्य रूप से हमारी आदरणीय विदुषी वक्त्री का विशेष स्वागत करते हैं। हम लोग हार्दिक स्वागत करते हैं और उनके इस अनुग्रह के लिए हर बार उनके आभारी रहते हैं कि वो अपना बहुत अधिक समय दे करके एक अत्यंत वैदुष्यपूर्ण भाषण जैन कला के किसी एक पक्ष पर, अर्थात जो विभिन्न पक्ष अभी तक उन्होंने स्पर्श किए हैं, उनमें से अब आज उसका एक जो अंतिम पक्ष अर्थात चित्रकला, उसका भी जो अंतिम व्याख्यान है, वो पिछली बार उन्होंने कहा था कि वो पटचित्रों के ऊपर होगा, तो उसकी हम उत्सुकता से प्रतीक्षा कर रहे हैं। और इस प्रकार से आज एक प्रकार से जो विवरण है जैन कला के विभिन्न प्रकारों का, उसके विभिन्न पक्षों का, अर्थात वास्तु, शिल्प और चित्र, उसका विवरण पूर्ण हो जाएगा। फिर जैन कला की अपनी क्या निजी विशेषताएं हैं और किस प्रकार से वो कला हमारे भारत में उद्भूत अन्य प्रकार की कलाओं से विभिन्न है, इस सब इनके वैशिष्ट्य पर और विशेष रूप से उसके कलात्मक सौंदर्य पर, एस्थेटिक उसका की जो ब्यूटी है, जैसे एस्थेटिक ब्यूटी पर वो अगले भाषण में प्रकाश डालेंगी। तो आज हम उनके लिए उनको भाषण के लिए आमंत्रित करते हैं और आशा करते हैं कि आज का भी भाषण आप लोग उसी अवधान के साथ, दत्त चित्तता के साथ, जिसे कहते हैं, ध्यान दे करके सुनेंगे, क्योंकि इसमें आप ही का लाभ है। जिस प्रकार से जिस तरह से आपने उनके पूर्व के व्याख्यानों को सुना है, तो आप सबका पुनः पुनः स्वागत और आदरणीय हमारी पवन जैन जी का भी हार्दिक स्वागत और उनसे अनुरोध कि वे कृपया अपना भाषण प्रारंभ करें।
जय जिनेंद्र to everybody. Okay. Yes. So, as has been already mentioned by both, this is going to be the last lecture in the series of paintings. And then there'll be one more where we discuss about the aesthetics of the Jain art. So last time I had mentioned that this last segment is going to comprise of the large paintings. We saw miniature paintings so far, which were part of the manuscripts, Jain manuscripts. So today we are going to see something quite different, opposite of what we have seen, although Some of the paintings you may feel that we have already seen them because they appear in both miniature forms and also these large putt paintings also. So these puttas are most of the time they are painted on cloth and sometimes on paper also or canvas also. And the size of these puttas absolutely vary. They can be as large as 2.5 meters, long, or probably say 1.5 feet, etc., etc. So it largely varies. All right. So these Jain puttas, we can divide them, into two categories mainly. So number one category is the tantric puttas. So what are the tantric puttas? They have diagrams which are called the yantras. Okay. And of course, they also incorporate mantras and images of deities which are used in tantric practices. Okay. And it is also considered to be a direct path to salvation or enlightenment in that sense. Then there are also scenes drawn from a description of the different tantric sects, texts. Okay, so some examples are Surinam Kalpa, Vardhman Vidya Kalpa, or Vijay Pata, Saraswati Pat, or Parshvanath Pat, etc., etc. Okay. Then there is the other variety which we come across, which are the non-tantric works, which are more like chitrapatas. All right. And among these, there are picture paintings. There are Samvatsaran Pata, the Tirth Patas are there, which actually have the drawings of the various pilgrimage, Jain pilgrimage sites and cosmological charts, the Adhai Dvipa or the cosmic diagrams, the cosmic man, which is the Jain concept of the universe. This is how it is depicted. Then there are banners such as Vijnapti Patras or Kshamapna Patra, or there are some Chitrakavyas also, whereby, some important scene from a particular text is depicted on this, whatever famous kavyas are there. Then an interesting part that we come across are the Gyanbazi patas. All right, and we will have I will show all of them to you one by one. So definitely they have some kind of religious content, but are not concerned with the tantric text. Okay. And they are both narrative as well as didactic, which means that there is some kind of teaching which is there in most of the pattas that we see. And besides, being religious and all that, they are also very excellent, documents of the social life and the culture in the period that they were executed. Okay. Because, of course, religious content is always there. Let me see. Why isn't this moving? Okay. Yeah. So we have seen this image of cosmic man, but here the dimension is quite different of the painting that you're looking at. So, of course, we all know the Jain, the very concept or the details of the Jain universe is very, very overwhelming. And I had explained to you about the large numbers that are used to describe the large extent of the Jain universe or its time cycles, and the number of creatures are all so large that they are almost incomprehensible. Okay. And we also spoke about the time, how it proceeds through eternally repeating cycles divided into 12 spokes. For 6 periods, the quality of existence kind of regresses from very happy to unhappy. And then, of course, the sequence is reversed. And it is only in the middle periods of the high cycle, these half cycles, that there is an adequate balance between the pleasure and the pain. And there is adequate potential or spiritual potential to achieve in, or spiritual perfection can be achieved in these two particular life cycles. All right. And we also said that it is during this time that the Tirthankar is born in Bharatvarsh, because, they defeated ignorance. They got, they got out of the karmic bondage. They are known as the conquerors or the Jinas. So the Jain religion tells us that the odds of being born as a human being are very, very minuscule. And then to have been born as a Jain is even much, much rare. So the message of the, mind-numbing lesson here of Jain cosmology is that a person should understand as to how precious and rare this human life is, and we should try to make the best of it. Okay. So this is, of course, the Lok Purush we have seen earlier also. So this depiction of cosmic man is often found in Jain temples. Precisely, it reminds the worshippers of where they are in the entire universe, how minuscule their existence is when we are considering the entire Jain universe, and what they should be striving to do in this life, because we spoke about the three different lokas, the Adholok, Madhyalok, Urdhvalok, and how according to the karma particles that bind our soul, and accordingly, in our next birth, we accordingly, are reborn in that particular region of the universe. All right. So this is how the Jain cosmology works, or the cosmic man is depicted like this. So in this painting, we can clearly see on top here, on the head is the Siddhashila, where the Siddhas reside, or the Tirthankars. And then we have the Anuttaras, the Vaimanics, all are there in the upper part of the spindle. And then this is the lower part, where the middle part, where the 2.5 islands are there, and the lower 7 levels of hells are there, and which has been, shown very, very beautifully here as to what all you may encounter if you just, by chance, if you are, reborn in one of these hells. So this part also has, there is an inscription which is provided that it was for the worship of this mandal of the three worlds, and as the enormous body of the three worlds of Mahavir. So hence it is also considered as the cosmic representation of Mahavir. So this is another part that we come across, whereby all the three are shown simultaneously. So this is the Adhai Dweep diagram that we see, and then in the center we have the cosmic man, and here, of course, we have the 7 different kinds of hells that are depicted very, very in an animated manner. All right. So this is of course, the central continent I have explained to you. This is the diagram of Adhai Dweep. This is the Jambu Dweep. Then it is surrounded by Lavan Samudra, and then you have the Dhatuki Dweep. Then another ocean, you have the Black Ocean or the Kalodadi, and then you have the Pushkar Dweep. And we also spoke about how half of Pushkar, a man cannot enter beyond one half of the Pushkar Dweep, because it is blocked by a range of mountains which are called the Manushottar. The very name suggests that a man cannot go beyond those mountains. Okay. So this is how it is. And then Jambu Dweep in the center, of course, is divided into 7 countries by 6 parallel mountains inside. And humans reside in these, Airavat is there, Mahavidya is there, and of course the Jambu Dweep is there, etc., etc. Okay. So this is another diagram. As I have also explained to you earlier, Samgrahini Sutra is one text which talks about Jain cosmology. So often these diagrams are very, very repetitive, and There is not much to look at in these diagrams, but still we can, quickly go through these. So here there is a cosmic man also here in the one corner. Then you have Nandishwar Dweep here, I showed you. So sometimes this circular configuration, you will find this mythical Nandishwar Dweep. In one of the South Indian temples also, I showed you this depiction was there, which was done in a very low relief. Then you have Gautam Gani sitting here. He was the chief disciple of Mahavir. And then here you have the depiction of Panchmeru, where you have the different, all the jinas sitting at different levels here. All right. So these 5 cosmic mountains are shown here almost by the hourglass forms that are there over here, and in the center alongside the horizontal axis, and in the corner shrine everywhere, each mountain is represented by a tier of jinas. Okay. So, okay, this is another one. Just I thought they almost look the same, but just, I thought I'll just quickly take you through these. So every artist will have, of course, the basic principles remain the same, but of course, every artist has his own, imagination, and then he would try to decorate these with various different figures as he understands the very concept of Adhaidri. Okay. So here, of course, you can see these almost ribbon-like. This is, of course, the detail of this particular diagram that we have. And normally you will find these 4 shrines in the 4 corner depicting about the, Mahavideya, where, there is a perpetual worship which is going on about the, of the Tirthankars. So the oldest Adhaidri Pata is dated actually, and it is dated 1505, which if you happen to go to Gallico Museum, you can still see that. Okay. So, and this is another one. Okay. So with this, we have come to another kind of Vastrapat, which is called the Samvatsaran Pat. Now we have seen so many Samvatsaran paintings earlier in the manuscript form, and they did not look anything like this. So here the artist has a totally different take on when he's, trying to depict this Samvatsaran. So, of course, the outermost enclosure is made up of silver, and where we are finding all different kinds of vehicles. They have been, parked here. Some European carriages are there, coaches, carts, the palanquins, some kind of chairs are there. They are presumably, they are the conveyance of all the dignitaries who have come to listen to the sermon of the Tirthankar. Then, of course, the second enclosure is made up of gold, where we find all kinds of different animals which are there. And then the innermost enclosure, which is made up of gems, here we find all the, celestial figures, etc. The monks and all those who are, the divinities which are present inside. And then right in the center, we find there is an octagonal crystal here, and in the 4 cardinal directions, we find the 4 images of the Tirthankara seated, as we had explained earlier about the construction of Samvatsaran. All right. Okay, and here from this side, I just thought here there is a procession of people who are, in a very, very organized way, they are trying to enter this particular audience hall or assembly hall. So it is almost like a very, very modern concept where, there are people who are standing in, line, and as if, when we are standing outside some kind of auditorium waiting for our turn, we'll show the ticket, etc. So it's a very, very, I would say, realistic depiction as to the artist's imagination as to probably this is how it must be happening. All right. So, of course, this is definitely a huge deviation from the conventional renderings that we see on the subject, and of course about the iconography and the coloring, etc., etc. Okay. So this is, I'm showing you one of the Tirthpatas. So the visual representation of the pilgrimage site served as the surrogates for actual pilgrimages. But what do I mean? Surrogates means you're not actually visiting those places, but you are just having the darshan of those, tirthas or the pilgrimage sites by looking at these huge, drawings or the paintings or the vastrapatas. And this actually allowed the glimpse of the images which are actually present at the tirth, and with all the spiritual benefits that such an experience will entail. All right. So it is said that so there are people who are sick people or old people who are not able to visit these, places of pilgrimage. Then it is very, very beneficial for them to earn some kind of religious merit just by looking at these particular vastrapatas. So, in fact, most of these vastrapatas are housed inside the Jain temples, all right, and including, in fact, there are Nandishwar Dvipatas also, which are, mythological, which actually nobody has seen, but you will find paintings of that also. So that just by visiting a, single holy site, pilgrim can, might again gain the merit of worshipping at all the Jain shrines in the universe. All right. So early texts had were carefully, noting down where all the key events in the Tirthankara's life had taken place, and they kind of lent them some kind of aura of sanctity. All right. And the place of, especially the place of passing away of the Tirthankar, which is assumed to be, its significance because that's where it is related to his moksha. So those places are considered to be very, very pious and sacred. And most of, in fact, all those places have turned into Jain pilgrimage site. So here it is important for me to tell you that both these sects, Shwetambar and Digambar, they share all the, tirthas. They are common amongst them. The popularity of certain tirth, among one sect, it is only, question of degree, but it is not that a particular tirth only a Shwetambar Jain will visit, etc., etc. Okay. So the accounts of their deeds, the Tirthankars' deeds, inspired actually visits to the spots where all these things happened, and who wish to have a pious death actually at the end of their life journey. It is also, recommended in the religion that you visit these pilgrimages. And if not, then surely you should look at least look at them, have a darshan of these tirthpatas. All right. So basically, pilgrimage in Jainism began as a rite of commemoration. You are actually trying to remember all those important events that took place. And around the 5th century, actually, there are some names of the pilgrimage sites that start to appear in Jain texts. All right. So it is mostly the Panchkalyanak, the 5 central events that have happened in the Tirthankar's life, which are normally associated with these pilgrimage sites. All right. And the main tirthas amongst the Jains are, of course, the Shatrunjay, where Bharat achieved omniscience. Girnar is connected with Neminar. Then there is Abu, then Sammet Shikhar, where Parshnath and 19 other Tirthankars attained moksha. Then there is Ashtapad mountain, which is synonymous with Kailash, where Rishabhnath is supposed to have attained moksha. All right. Then Digambars also worship Pavapuri, which is the moksha place of Mahavir, and also Vastu Pujya Bhagwan, who attained moksha from Champapuri. Then we also have Shravan Belgola, where Bahubali, attained Nirvana, etc. So then there are also vivid tirthapatas. This I'm showing you where only single, tirtha has been shown. But there are vivid tirthapatas also, whereby they bring multiple sites in one particular painting, which, brings in the benefits of having visited all the sites. And to worship here is to gain merits of worshipping, everywhere as such. Okay. So one main clue to identify the site of Shatrunjay is, of course, the river that, you always see flowing around, the left side of the composition. All right. And then we have, of course, there are Adishwar temple here. You have the main, image of Tirthankar, which is stationed here. So you can see when we are doing the manuscripts painting, the space is a huge limitation. Whereas in these, large Vastupatas, the artist can really go berserk and, try to accommodate as much of human life as can be possible. Yeah. Then this is another one of the Shatrunjay Pata only. Another. So here the temples that are being shown, these are at the bottom of the hill, at the Palitana level. Okay. And then this is, of course, on the top of the hill. And these are supposed to be the Panch Pandavas. So I have always questioned this in Indian thought. Wherever we have 5 people standing together, I mean, it is true not only with Jains, but also amongst the Hindu temples or the paintings or any Brahmanical sites. Wherever you will see a congregation of 5 men, we will always, name it as the 5 Pandavas, etc. So, I don't know how true it is, but this is how it is named as. Okay. Then this is a panel of Sammet Shikhar. Sammet Shikhar is the peak of wisdom, as it is translated into. It is carved in low relief. Probably it was part of some, temple wall, but now it is housed in a South Kensington Museum in London. All right. So you can clearly see the winding path that is going up, and you can see these different, as they are called, the tonks, or this is where you find the footprints of the different various Tirthankars. And in the center, you have the Parshvanath image, and you can clearly recognize that this is the Sammet Shikhar that we are talking about. And these temples that you have at the base, it is believed that these were built by the Shwetambars during Akbar period in around, between 56 and 1600s, that time. Okay. And this is another image of Sammet Shikhar. Sammet Shikhar, of course, is in Bihar. It's very close to Giridih. Giridih is the place, and then you go up to Madhuban, and then you start climbing up. Okay. So there are 20 temples which house the footprints, which you can see here. And this is how they are all placed on, different hills. You go up, down, all the way. And then in the center, you can recognize image of Parshvanath here in the big temple. All right. Then this is the Ashtpada mountain, from where it is believed that Rishabdev attained moksha. So both Shwetambars and Digambars believe that this semi-mythical Mount Ashtpad, or the Kailash, which is not really as mythical because it actually exists, is the moksha site of Rishabnath. And also Hindus believe that Shiva lived on this mountain. So here, as I had mentioned earlier also, there is some kind of similarity between Shiva and Adinath. All right. So, in fact, Adinath, there were many jinas that had followed him, and Bharat, his son, installed 24, jinas and put guards around them. And there are these 8 steps, and that's how the name has come into being, the Ashtpada mountain. All right. And this particular ascent is very, very difficult. And here you can see Gautam Gani, through his magical powers, he, flew there with his magical powers, and here he's climbing. All right. Whereas these other, of course, these are the Hindu bhikshus and the other, devotees. They were not able to climb up. And here, this another event where Gautam Gani created lot of, the milk pudding or kheer, as we call it, from a single bowl. And this is where, they are all the, those bhikshus are, have been shown with their begging bowl. So here again, you can see some kind of hierarchy here, whereby this particular drawing is trying to show the superiority of one religion over the other, etc. All right. And then there is another story here about with the Hindus, which believe that the descent of Ganga, where it is related, where the Bhagirath prayed to Shiva to reduce the flow of water of Ganga and allow it to pass through his jatas, etc. Okay. So then now we come to the next kind of Vastrapatas, which are called the Vijnapti Patras, or the letters of invitation. They are normally heavily decorated, and they are long scrolls which can be, folded like this in a scroll form, and they are presented by the commoners or the laity to their gurus or their religious guides. And what do they do by presenting? They invite the guru to spend the forthcoming monsoon season or the Chaturmas with them. So it's a common practice amongst Jains that during those 4 months of rainy season, the Jain monks are not supposed to travel. It's again related to the ahimsa aspect of it, because although for the monks it is it's one of the conducts, as they have been laid out in the text, that they cannot stay in one place for a long time. Why? Because the basic thing about the non-possessiveness. All right. So because when we are staying in one place, we normally tend to get attached to that place. A simple example is if we are, say, going for a holiday, if we are going at the reception and you haven't been there in that place even for more than an hour, but what do you say? You are asked, you say, please give my room keys. That room becomes yours in no time. All right. Such is the human mind and human tendency. So that's why this particular principle is there, that the people, the Jain monks who follow the religion, they cannot stay in one place. But there is, only during these rainy season or these months that they can stay in one place. And that's why the commoners are very eager to invite them to spend that Chaumasa or the Chaturmas with them, because they all want to listen to his discourses, and by inviting him and having him to spend time with him, they tend to get a lot of Gyan Labh or religious merit they earn. All right. Okay. So they will depict the bazaars, the merchants selling sweets, the local bazaars, the jewelers, toys, the cloth merchants, perfume, grocery sellers. And of course, then there are processions you will see that sometimes of elephants or horses, cavalry, musicians, dancers. All these form the various subject matters for these Vijnapti Patras, because they are very, very long. And also, it is also to attract, although I will say that the monks who have already taken to Jain religion, these kind of, attractions or pralobhans may rarely work on them. But at the same time, the Jain, laity spends, lot of effort in decorating these invitation letters. And then there are some, Kshamapna Patra also, that we know, letters of apology sought, through which we seek forgiveness at the end of the Paryushan festival for all the wrongdoings in the past 1 year. And they also have similar kind of decorations. I haven't seen these kind of Vijnapti Patras being sent today. Still, probably in some parts of Gujarat and Rajasthan, they are still may be prevalent. But Kshamapna Patra, I still receive. And of course, in modern times, WhatsApp has come to everybody's rescue, and you don't need to actually go out and get them painted or written. You can quickly write a message and send out your Michhami Dukkadam, which is, of course, in Prakrit. All right. Okay. So this is one of the Vijnapti Patra that I wanted to show you. So here you can see different, there's a different kinds of trade which is happening here. There are different shops which have been depicted, commencing various different kinds of businesses. So, yeah, this kind of actually painting, the Vijnapti Patra here, this is just the detail of this part I thought I will show you, because here it's all very, very crowded. So these again are very, as I said, these are long scrolls. And most of these we will see from the 18th, 19th century, much later. So you can again see the rotundity or the roundness and the clarity of lines. The angularity is totally missing. There's some kind of shading, and there's some aspect of perspective, etc. also there. So in fact, there are a lot of Vijnapti Patras that have come down to us from Sirohi, which is a town in Rajasthan. And these were consistently done in the local, Mughal or the popular style. Okay. So this is another one that these two I wanted you to look at, because here you can see the 14 dreams, auspicious dreams of the Tirthankar's mother. And also you can see the Ashtamangalas. Do you see this? So up till here, you have the Ashtamangalas, and from here, the auspicious dreams have started. So this formed a very, very popular subject to be painted on these Vijnapti Patras. And then this one is again very, very interesting. Here you are, all the various religions which are, flourishing in the city or in the surrounding. They have been beautifully depicted here. Here you can see a mosque here. Then there is a Hindu temple here, Shivling here, Nandi. All that is seen. And then, of course, finally, you have the Jain shrine here also. And then there are some court scenes here. And the borders also are beautifully painted here. And as I had spoken about, these are typically in the style of Mughal paintings, just as the hashias of the Mughal paintings are painted or drawn. This is how these are being done. Okay. So, of course, with the emergence of new sovereignty, that is the rise of East India Company and the expansion of, pan-Indian mercantile networks that happened during that time, contributed to the increased mobility of the people and the objects in these 18th and 19th centuries. And possibly there was an explosion in the commissioning and, of these elaborated, painted letters, etc. also. So here what we are looking at, there is of course, because they are very, very long scrolls, and the artist wanted to, did not know how to, probably, normally we just stick to one format, whether it is landscape or it is portrait. But here he has kind of mixed the two formats. So some things here we can see in the portraiture here and here also, whereas this particular, the central building that we are seeing, it is totally made in the landscape. So totally it is devoid or total disregard for, single perspective. So there are multiple perspectives that you can see here. And you can also see, because the Mughal paintings were very particular about showing some kind of environment here. So you can see the city here, you can see the tall mosque minars here, etc., etc. And you can see a procession whereby you can see the British officers probably moving, and there is a Hindu king who has come out probably in the welcome of the this British entourage which is coming. And this particular building, we can clearly say that there is a mosque in between, or some kind of Islamic building, probably a madrasa or something, because you can clearly make out from the architecture these kind of OG arches and these burjes on top. They typically they betray their alliance to the Islamic faith. Yeah. Okay. Then talking about the Britishers, this painting is of course inspired by the text Shripal Ras, which is a very, very popular amongst the Shwetambars, and it's a didactic tale which talks about the virtue of worship of Siddha Chakra, or the wheel of liberated beings. All right. So of course the protagonist here, Shripal, prince on a voyage to distant lands, is to make a fortune. He is struck by many misfortunes in this journey, and one of them was of course the demon that you are seeing here. All right, Shripal here is sitting here nicely under the pavilion here. Okay, so of course the demon is shown with a sword in one hand. There are snakes almost coming out from different parts of his body. He has red lips, and he's also wearing a mundmal, etc. So kind of it's depicting some kind of vibhats or bhayanak rasa, or the character of the demon. So the you can interestingly see the Union Jack fluttering here on this ship. So the artist is from Surat, which was of course a big British post on the Indian coast, and the current modes of fashion also you can see here. So I think this is where I always say that of course we are looking at Shripal and the demon, but there are these small other details. If you glean through the painting, you will learn a lot about the other aspects that the painting is trying to tell you. Okay. So now we are looking at the very, very famous Agra Vijnapti Patra, which depicts the Mughal Emperor Jahangir's proclamation, or the Farman, which he issued at the request of the important Jain monks, which sought to forbid the killing of animals during the period of 12 days of Paryushin and on the Jain calendar. All right. In fact, today also there was some news I was reading that some Jains have made some presentation to Punjab government. So it's not something very new, actually. It has been happening from Akbar's period. Even during Akbar's time, Akbar had prohibited, killing of animals during these days of the Paryushin. Okay. So the very famous painter, in fact, when we talk about the Mughal Karkhanas or the paintings, it was Jahangir who was most enthusiastic out of all the Mughal emperors, and the best of Mughal paintings have been made during Jahangir's time. And in fact, it is said that if you had put two paintings in front of Jahangir, he just by looking at those paintings, he would know which artist has painted which one. Such was his dexterity in this particular field. So Sali Vahan was a coat painter in Jahangir's Mughal atelier, and he in fact emphasized the historicity of this particular movement by portraying and labeling this particular event that happened. And he happened to be present when Jahangir was issuing this particular farman. And in fact, he made some rough sketches at that time. And then, of course, later, he made a big Vijnapti Patra. If you look at the size, you can see it's almost as long as 3 meters. Yeah. So it's very, very long, and there are different parts to it. And by making this, he has made this farman immortal. All right. So here, his patrons were not the Mughal or the imperial king. It was the Jain community who had commissioned this particular Vijnapti Patra, but from a Mughal atelier. All right. Okay. So there were this group of, 4 pupils of Vijay Sen Suri, who was at that time residing at Patan. So these 4 pupils, Vivek Harsh, Parmanand, Mahanand, and Uday Harsh, they all, they wanted to request Vijay Sen Suri to come and spend the Chaturmas in Agra. This is all happening in Agra. Jahangir was in Agra at that time. All right. So this is the local depiction of the Agra city at that time and how it all appeared, etc. And they approached the king. And of course, there was a local king, I think his name was Ramdas or something like that. In fact, he led the delegation to the king. And this is how they presented their point of view. And Jahangir, of course, agreed to it, and he released the farman. So in this, this is actually the almost half of what I'm trying to show you. So probably I'll show you some other parts also. So this also goes to show that there was a close relationship that was existing between the Mughal Empire and the Jain religious leader. Needless to say that most of the Jain community, they were very, very rich merchants. And of course, the economy of any place is primarily driven by the business community. And it is not surprising that most of the kings or the Mughal emperors also had a very, very congenial or friendly relationship with the community. Okay, yeah. So this very, very tall letter consists of 2 separate scenes. The first one depicts where there is a court of Jahangir at Agra, and at the time of when the farman was granted, and the proclamation of the farman in the city was done with the beat of drum. So here you can clearly see, how even probably in smaller villages, it might be happening even today. We hear these voices, suno, suno, suno. So this is how it was. There was no other form of communication. This is how any of the laws or the proclamations were made. The public was made aware of these kind of proclamations. Okay, so with the drum beat, etc., you could come to know about them. And then in the next scene, the next part of the scene, we have, of course, the artist was not present there, but he kind of just conjures up, in his imagination, the scene as it might have occurred at the presentation of the farman. Sorry. Here you can see the pupil of Vijay Sen Suri presenting him that particular farman, all right, in Patan. And of course, there is a lot of rejoicing which is happening, attending this event among the Jains of the town. There are, musicians, dancers, etc. Then you see a swastik here in front of these 3 sadhvis, and probably these 3 women have come to pay their respect to the sadhvis and probably to, give their offerings, etc., etc. So you see a lot of, animation that is happening here. So this is, of course, the detail of the first part. So mind you, this is this particular Vijnapti Patra is present in LD Museum in Ahmedabad. So if you happen to visit Ahmedabad and in LD Institute, you must see this. It's a historical record. At the same time, it's a treat when you look at this long scroll. So here you can see Jahangir seated. He's seated under a pavilion, which is a public hall. He's raised, so probably he's come out in the balcony because this is the ground level where the elephant is there. All right. So he's much above the ground level. And there is a chori bearer at the back, and there is a court official or the courtier here. And you can see Khurram, the crown prince here in a green jama, almost, probably learning from whatever the court happenings which are there. Okay. So here you can see, so he's the king that I was talking about. I think his name, I'm not very sure. Whatever, maybe it will come to me. Ramdas or Dharamdas, something like that. So he is the one who was leading the delegation, and here he has got the farman in his hand, finally. Okay. Okay. And this is, of course, I think Raja Ramdas only his name was. So, and this is the middle portion where, all the different people had approached, and then they are coming back, they are rejoicing. There is a lot of movement here. The typical, bazaar scene, or just outside the palace, there are elephants, and there are, people in British costumes here. See, you can see these long red trousers with a hat on top. Arabs are there, Turks are there. So different ambassadors, etc., that you can see here. The thoroughfare of Agra city. Yeah, sorry. And of course, this is the detail that I have already shown you. Here you can see much, much greater detail. All right. So of course, the scene here, the point to be noted is Salivahan, he's a Mughal painter. He works for Mughal atelier. But here you see totally flat background here. Although there is a lot of, softness of lines, everything, shading, etc. But as far as the backgrounds are concerned, probably he's trying to stick to the Jain idiom of painting here. And probably he's trying to bring in some Jain painting features because he knows that it is being painted for that particular community. Okay, so it's very interesting how he's been able to assimilate some Jain painting characters here. All right. So this, it is not only important to look at the paintings, the various aspects of the city life or the court life, or, how the Jain community presents the Vijnapti Patra, etc., etc. But the letter also gives the names of men and women, in the city of Agra, people who were responsible for this. And it also names, of course, several jinnahs and the businessmen who were, in fact, it also gives the amount of donation by various people that had come in the making of this particular Vijnapti Patra. So this is one of my favorite Vijnapti Patras that have come down to us. Okay. Then the next Vastrapat we find, sometimes they are also made on paper also, but this one, of course, is on cloth. And this is a prized possession of National Museum in Delhi. So Gyan Chopper, as it is called, it is a dice game from ancient India, which in modern times, popularly we know it as snakes and ladders. Okay, and it has since spread to the rest of the world and remains a very, very popular game till date. Okay, so originally the main purpose was not only to entertain, okay, but also to teach morality. The central concept is liberation from the bondage of all the passions. So the players move from the bottom, lower level of consciousness to higher level of spiritual enlightenment, and finally attain moksha. So here you have the depiction of Siddhashila. So this is a popular game which I don't know how much it is practiced today, but in earlier times, it was being played during the time of Paryushan by children. Okay, so this is another one that I thought I will show you. It's also called Gyan Bazi, the Gyan Chopper or Gyan Bazi. They are, both the words are being used interchangeably. So, of course, there's always a checkerboard representing the progress of one's life with the 84 squares, each with word pointing out the rules of the conduct and good and bad effects thereof. That if you do, so these 84 squares have different code of conducts that that human beings encounter. Some are good, some are bad. So if you have done something good, probably you will climb up the ladder, and if it is something bad, probably a snake is going to bite you and you will come down in the ladder. And this 4-tiered pavilion that you see here, of course, it represents heavens, and it's the top part or the summit is occupied by the Siddhashila, which is flanked by 2 peacocks. And of course, normally you will find sun and moon always accompanying these. And in fact, there is a reason for this also. If we have a chance today, I'll explain to you the positioning of sun and moon on the 2 sides. Okay, so of course, I spoke about the Kshamapana Patra also. In the similar way they are being done, but probably not as decorative. So here you can see, the picture is not very clear. You can see sun with his 7 horses here. And here you have the moon riding the antelope. Okay. So this is a very, very, I would say very peculiar or a funny putt that we came across. So it is showing Jinnah in the center. Then there are Vedic or Brahmanic deities. You have Brahma here, Krishna, Radha, Shiva, Parvati. Then you have Ganesh here. All right. And then here you have Durga, who's in her avatar of Mahishasur-Mardini, and she's here killing the demon and riding her mount, the lion. And here you have a Muslim clergy, probably teaching the royalty, because you can see some kind of halo, because this kingship was always equated with the divine character of the king, and it was not alone true with Mughal kings or Hindu kings. Even it has this particular practice is there right from if you look at the Egyptian paintings or the sculptures, etc. So this kind of halo always talks about their heavenly affiliation. Okay, so the funny thing is that at the bottom you find an elephant and an ass, a swan and a heron, and a lion and a jackal. So in this inscription that you read here, it clearly says that they have equated these lesser animals to these other gods in the other religion. And it's like, the ass is like, ass to elephant is like the other religions to Tirthankar or the Jinnah. And similarly, the heron is like, the other religions to swan, or a jackal to lion, etc. So this is a very, very, I find, unique example of sectarian rivalry, which has been picturized here. Okay. So we spoke about the non-tantric pattas up till now, and although I had promised that probably I will finish by 5, but I don't think it is going to happen. Anyway, we will continue. So we are talking about Tantrism in Jain art. Then we'll talk about the different aspects of, Tantric pattas and what are the other things that have influenced. So to start with, it is said, I have read it myself, that Mahavir is said to have proclaimed that if Tantra was, only for the fulfillment of physical desires by meditating on a deity in a particular way and for gaining supernatural powers, then in ancient Jain religion, there was no place for it. Okay, he clearly proclaimed this. Okay, but then it was much later. All right, there was a merger of Parshanath tradition with the Mahavir religion. The Parshanath tradition always believed in the Tantra sadhana, all right, which was different, and the Shramans of Mahavir tradition then again also became with the Tantric tradition. But as long as it was only used, for attaining the, for furthering the basic philosophy of religion, and it was not used for the fulfillment of worldly desires, etc., etc. Okay, so in ancient times, it was only limited to that. All right. In fact, this is also one of the main reasons that most of the tantric patas, you will have Parshanath as the presiding deity, because it was his tradition which always believed in the Tantrism. All right. And his Yakshi, Padmavati, in fact, there are separate texts which have been written on Padmavati Kalpa, which are, totally, they are tantric in nature, and she, in her own right, is being worshipped as a tantric deity in many temples. Okay, so this I just thought was a brief intro about the, because we often wonder, most of the tantric patas that have come down to us will have Parshanath as the presiding deity. So, of course, in stark opposition to what the traditional Jain lifestyle is, Tantra is a very problematic term for a variety of beliefs and practices that allow and often encourage the rejection of Jain orthodox teachings in order to achieve liberation. Because I said that it was a quick or the spontaneous way to achieve salvation or moksha, etc. All right. So, of course, Tantra has been adopted by all the different religions in India. Buddhist religion, we have total different sects in Buddhism called the Vajrayana. And of course, in Hinduism, the Shakti, worshippers. There are, of course, two types, the Vam Margis and the other one. Those who believe in the power of, the ultimate Godhead to be a female power. So that's what the Tantra's base, the Shakti cult basically believes in. All right. So, of course, Tantra is known for its, the promotion of meat eating, wine drinking, illicit sex, initiation into esoteric cults, and the use of magical invocations, mantras and yantras, mandalas, considered to be the direct path of enlightenment. All right. So it is important to say, let's first, we can discuss here. You can see a cosmic diagram of Parshanath here. He's seated in Padmasana here. And inside you have the Adhaidvip diagram here. And on the periphery, you have, of course, here he's been shown as a Lok Purush, all right, or the cosmic man that we spoke about. And there are other continents which are superimposed here on the outer this thing. So, and the two square, yantras indicate perfect equilibrium and the cohesion of all the bodily elements here. These two I'm talking about. So they are kind of imparting a lot of balance. And here also you have the depiction of sun and moon on the two sides here. Okay. So, yeah. So while we spoke about the, different character of or the practices of the Jain Tantrism, so the beauty of Jain Tantra is that it did not adopt all the tantric practices in their entirety. They, of course, adopted some and left out some. All right. So in that sense, the Jains, they kind of remodeled the tantric elements which were there in the which were prevailing at that time. Okay. So in fact, the magical powers from the we can see from earlier texts, they some of them talk about the magical powers of Mahavira, especially moving without touching the ground, or the eminent monks like I spoke about Kalkacharya, who had, changed the heap of bricks into into gold for buying the supplies, army supplies. Then there is a story about Sthulbhadra, one of the main pupils of Mahavir, whereby he converts himself into a lion and he wants to surprise his sisters, the two sisters who are visiting him. So of course these kind of magical happenings have been recorded in Jain texts. All right, but it is said that they were basically the byproducts of the meditation and the superior insight, rather than the result of any kind of occult practices, or the monks did not meditate to acquire these these magical powers. These were just as we say, the side products or the byproducts of whatever that they were out to gain. So this is again a Parshvanath Pata, not a very clear one, in National Museum only. We have looked at this sculpture earlier also from Kushan period. In fact, this is the very first Saraswati sculpture that has come down to us from Kushan period. So Jain mythologies and the literature is filled with stories of the involvement of various gods and goddesses, and it shows the ambivalent nature or the ambivalent attitude of the Jains towards the Hindu deities, how they overcome their qualms and how they depend on divine intervention, etc. And we have also seen in the text there are bhutas, dakini, pishachas in the agamas. All right, the Tilak Manjari, Brihat Katha Kosh, etc., etc. They describe about meditation upon mantras, Vidya Devis, Vidyas, Kapalikas. It is said that one is able to attain the boon by meditating upon them, and also one is able to get extraordinary powers. Okay. So Saraswati, personification of knowledge, ancient goddess of learning, Vidya and music. Okay. So in Tantra, it is believed that certain syllables, they possess magic if uttered in the right manner and at the right time. So in fact, there is a yantra, Shrut Skandha yantra, which actually is the symbolic representation of important Jain didactic texts, very popular with the Digambars, and especially very, very noteworthy because when there is Shrut Panchami, whereby we worship all the texts, etc., that's the time this particular yantra is being also worshipped, the Shrut Skandha yantra. All right. And sometimes the Shrut Skandha yantra will also have the figure of Shruta Devta, which is the goddess of learning, Saraswati. All right. And here we see there are a lot of inscriptions here where it shows the date and the donors, etc., etc. And sometimes there are also some kind of symbols or letters which are present, whereby you feel that probably one was supposed to meditate upon those letters. Okay. This is a beautiful Saraswati Pat that you find in National Museum. So, of course, Shruta Panchami is celebrated when the Jain texts, along with Goddess Saraswati personification Vidya, are worshipped. Okay. It is said that one is able to attain the boon and get extraordinary powers by meditating upon her. And this Saraswati Pata is, of course, very, very vibrant with very bright colors in a National Museum. Okay. So several yantras and tantric diagrams on metal are found worshipped in the Jain shrines. All right. And several other Jain patas are there, paintings, etc., which have the tantric connotation. The Suri Mantra pata is presented when monk becomes an acharya. The practitioner observes, utmost purity at that time of mind and soul with regard to the objective, all right, which is the sadhya and sadhana. So we'll also look at some of those patas. So this is the Ayak pata that I showed you from Kushan period. So normally we will find the Ashtamangal symbols or the Samvasaran, Jina sitting in the center. So normally they were rectangle or sometimes square or round also, which will have seated Jina in the center and three Ratnas, etc. So some are symbolic and stylized in expression. And it is said that probably that these were the patas which were the precursors. The first these happened, and then only the tantric patas came into being. Okay. Then I showed you this particular painting. This is a miniature painting whereby the 11 disciples of Mahavira have been, the Gandhars are depicted. And what do you see here in the center is the syllable rim here. All right. So, of course, rim syllable is used in the ritual use in a very, very restricted way. And it is used only by the mendicants. All right. And in fact, a commoner is not even supposed to chant this. All right. Okay. Then this is another folio from manuscript I wanted to show you. This is another, there is a rim and you have a Parshnath standing here. And this is the Samvasaran. And this is another syllable, Panch Parmeshthi. You have Indra moving here, Navgraha is here. So this again is a, tantric depiction in the manuscript form, whereby this particular syllable is being worshipped upon. Okay. Then, of course, we have this Siddh Chakra, which is, we have, as a Jain, we often encounter this, normally painted on a metal, and sometimes a lot of cloth paintings also we find where, huge Siddh Chakra patas are there. And we will sometimes, in fact, make it on a big square table also, at the time of celebrating any, Kalyanak in the temple, you will make it with, various colored grains, and you will try to make this particular thing. And it is mainly used, in many rituals inside the temple and otherwise also. So the syllable rim is very, very important in Jain Tantrism, whereby it represents, it kind of embodies all the 24 jinas. All right. So sometimes you will also find jina sitting in the center. And there are these 8 lotus petals that you find here, which correspond to the Panch Parmeshthi and the 3 Ratnas, Samyak Gyan, Darshan, and Charit. And in fact, they are much revered even today, especially during the Siddh Chakra Puja festival in the month of Chaitra that happens. Okay. Okay. Oh, I forgot to tell you one thing here. So normally you will find the shape of the Siddha Chakra in the shape of a round pot. Okay. Because I have already told you before also what was the significance of the pot. Okay. The Siddha refers to of course, liberated soul. That's why it is called and Chakra means the wheel. So the Siddha Chakra, it is believed that worshipping on Siddha Chakra results in the freedom from the cycle of life within a universal wheel. It's known as the Nirvana. Okay. So reference to the Purna Kumbha, I think I have already mentioned, was always an auspicious or Mangal symbol, which was found in Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain canons. Okay. And in fact, the Katha Sarit Sagar of the 16th century, it says that it equates the kumbha to the, or the ghata to the womb. And the seed grain which is planted inside the pot is a symbol of fertility. And the kalash, for that matter, or the purn ghata, then present in all the Brahminical or non-Brahminical ceremonies, represent the womb and the fertilizing waters of life. Okay. And at the neck of the kalash are, of course, you have the 9 nidhis that are there, navnidhis. Okay, the different various 9 kinds of treasures or wealth. And then there are 9 shrines which are dedicated to the navgrahas that you see here, and at the base of the kalash. Okay. And also you find sun and moon here. You can again see here the sun and moon on the 2 sides. And the very interesting part is the depiction of the 2 eyes that you find on the 2 sides. I showed you this particular thing in a manuscript painting also. All right. In fact, the 9 shrines dedicated to Navgrahas are at the base, and they kind of, it ensures that it protects you from the, wild animals, malignant spirits, enemies at, in battles, etc., etc. Okay. So we will learn now. It is a peculiar phenomenon in Jain paintings or in Jain context that this, Pund Kalash or the Ghata is always flanked, the neck is flanked by these 2 eyes. It is regularly provided with 2 these frontal looking eyes. And these are always wide open and unforeshortened, means it's they all with any lack of perspective, they are always shown in this particular form. Okay. So the eyes were shown in painting. In fact, just eyes per se, we have seen the further eye also in the painting where they had another connotation here. So the brimming vase in Jainism is depicted with an eye, which actually symbolizes the right faith and the right knowledge. And we have also been able to trace the origin of the same from the Rigved hymns or Mesopotamian legacy also, where there is a flowing vase with 2 streams, and the 2 streams, in fact, in Rigved it is said that it is the eyes of Soma. All right. And it says that let there never be any deficiency of the Soma. The flow of Soma should, flow unstoppably. So, and these 2 eyes, I'm forgetting that there is a Rigvedic mantra which is being chanted, and it talks about 1 eye, but it is being the practice is to chant it 2 times, which kind of it shows the 2 eyes of, it could be the one of sun and moon, or both the eyes of the moon. That is the connotation which has come down to us by the great art historians like Anand Kumaraswamy, etc., etc. Okay. So this is another, Parshvanath Pata, again in National Museum. He's attended here by his Yakshas, Yaksha Dharnendra and Padmavati here. And top of the, these outer circle, of course, there are 4 deities which are present: Yakshi Padmavati, Purnabhadra Yaksha. Here you have Gautam Gani sitting here. All right. So, in fact, the Jain text also envisions this particular diagram as the idealized representation of the cosmos, with the Jinnah seated at the center, surrounded by the various oceans, mountains, peaks, etc. The 8 padas, or the these 8 petals of the lotus, they represent the Panchparameshthi and the 3 Ratnas. Okay. So here, yeah, I showed you again. Yeah. So in the four corners, I just thought I'll show you in detail the four corners, the different deities which were being there. Of course, on one side was Gautam Gani, then Poonbhadra on the left-hand side corner. Then you have Padmavati here. And in fact, the belief in yakshas and nagas, it was fairly old in Jainism. And Dharnendra was, as a yaksha, always have had his independent worship also. So in fact, in earlier texts, the chief consort of Dharnendra was supposed to be Vairotya. All right, Vairotya was also there in this particular pata in one of the corners. And it was only later that she lost her popularity as compared to Padmavati. All right. And her attributes are normally she holds a sword, a snake, and a shield, etc. And there are, different texts also which are written pertaining to Vairotya. Okay. So the cult of Padmavati almost rose very close to the Gupta period. Earlier, it was the Vairotya, Yakshi, which was being worshipped. I think we have already seen this one last time. This is, I showed you in context with Mallinath. No? That's what I had shown you, this one. So this is again Rimkara or a Rishi Mandala pata. This is a Shwetambar pata. You can see all the various Tirthankars sitting here and other, minor gods and goddesses in the periphery here. And again, you have these multi-armed deities here in the different corners here. Okay, and we don't want to discuss this in detail since we have already done this. And see these eyes, again, you will always find these eyes present in all these patas. So this is the detail of the pata. And I spoke about this particular...
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
Okay. So this particular, the eye section, which originally was always, Parshvanath was, shown seated here. Here probably with the popularity of the Shakti cult in the, during this time, around 12th century, we find Mallinath with her cognizance being shown here. So this is another kind of tantric pat, which is the Suri Mantra pata, which is presented when the monk becomes an acharya. All right. And this also consists of, multiple concentric circles. In the center, the figure almost appears like a Bhairav here. All right, this one, you can see this. This is not Tirthankara. You can see the unkempt hair here and some kind of mundmal that he's wearing here. So definitely there is some affiliation to the Brahmanic tantric cult here, where Bhairav, we say, is the presiding deity in, Brahmanic religion when Tantra is concerned. And he is the presiding deity of all the 64 yoginis also. So most of these tantric patas, whereby the different elements present, such as the two sides on the side of the Purn Kalash, the tantric seed syllables, presence of goddesses, yakshis, and Vidya Devis, allude to the very esoteric or very secret and magical religious nature of these devices as such. So here, of course, you again see all the various goddesses, all, borrowed from Brahmanic culture. You will find, Navgrahas, Ashtadikpalas, etc., etc. So this is another tantric pata whereby it is the goddess Pratyangira who is being worshipped. She has 5 faces here, and correspondingly those many hands she has. You have the Navgrahas here on top and various Brahmanic deities you find in the border area. And again, you find, of course, in Jain religion, most of the time we address Ganesh as Yaksha Purnabhadra. So that's how we differentiate it from the other religion. So, and this is the detail of the same. Yeah, you can see very clearly. Okay. So this is, of course, another another tantric pata, the Vardhaman Vidya Kalpa, as it, or the pata is it called. And of course, here at the center, you will find Mahavir. And it is similar to Suri Mantra Pata, but it is for in the hierarchy of the teachers, it is for the lower level of teachers. And these were to be actually given at the end of the ceremony, by which a monk was installed in a position of Vachanacharya, that he's eligible to read the scriptures. Okay. So, and here it almost replicates the Samvasaran that we have seen, representing the syllables, in multiple levels, and the 4 gateways, etc., etc. All right. So the animals, the pathways, natural enemies that are living together, probably due to the power of the Jinnah who is there in the center. So I've just shown you the detail of this particular border here. So you can see the peacock and snake. They are coexisting. This is a very typical motif that we find in Buddhism also, or in Jainism, of course, where the cow and the lion, they are both drinking milk from the same water body. So similarly, in all the 4 borders, you find different kind of animals. Here you have cow and a lion, probably. So likewise, these small animals are depicted here in the borders. Okay. So this is another one of the same kind, Vardhaman Vidya Pata. Almost similar, no? With very little difference. Okay. Wait, we'll see this. So this is the Jayanta Yantra, or it is called the victory banner, which kind of, it is designed for the rites to be performed, which will, ensure victory. It could be anything. I mean, and it served as a visual aid in all kinds of esoteric rites. The victory could be not necessarily against your enemy, anybody who's, troubling you in life, whatever that you are troubled with. So by meditating upon this particular, victory banner, you were supposed to gain that kind of power. All right. So here you see the entire pata is, the middle, the major portion of the pata is divided into a grid fashion, where, there are tantric syllables which are written in each square, and probably some, numbers are also there. And there it is bordered on 2 sides with multiple deities. In the center, of course, you have a water pot here with 2 eyes, which are not missing anywhere. So the lower register here at the top, here you have the 14 jewels of the Chakravarti. If you remember, I showed you last time when we were looking at Sangrani Sutra. So the different jewels that are there of the Chakravarti, here you can see. And on top, you can see the various Hindu deities also here. All right, you see Ganesh, Brahma, Shiva, etc., probably Durga. And then at the bottom also, you can see various deities here. So you see there is a lot of, especially when we talk about Tantra in Jain religion, there is a lot of Brahmanic influence that has, crept inside. Okay. Then this is, of course, the famous Ganesh, or as in Jainism we call him Yaksha, Purnabhadra. All right. And you can see this particular square here, which again has chrome as the monosyllable, which is written in the border. And then there are some more syllables which are there inside. Yeah. So very, very auspicious, benevolent king of yakshas, multi-armed, elephant-headed, is apparently a very late Jain conception of its inclusion, isn't it? It has come very late in Jain pantheon. So in amongst Jains also, there is a legend. Just amongst Hindus, as we say, that Parvati was taking bath and Ganesh was sitting outside, and Parvati had said that don't let anybody come inside, and then Shiva comes and he severes his head because he was asking him not to enter, and then of course Parvati says that get the head, whoever you come, meet on the way first, and that's how the elephant head was put on Ganesha. All right, I think that's the more or less the story. In amongst Jain also, there is a story that Poonbhadra's wife, who was Bhadravati, accidentally hit the god Kuber with a fly whisk while she was thinking about an elephant. And because of this, Kuber actually cursed that the couple to make them take the form of elephants. And this is how Poonbhadra was, he became elephant-headed. And of course, his function is always as protector. You can see here, he's carrying multiple, arms or weapons in his various hands. And of course, the grid in this upper left corner of the painting contains many mystical symbols, which kind of symbolizes the esoteric religious practice that this particular but might have been used for. Okay. Then we also know about this Siddh Pratima Yantra, which is a magical diagram, which also is present in our temples, and we as Jains, we meditate upon this. Then from 11th century onwards, as I said, there was the prevalence of the Shakti cult amongst the Brahminic religion, and all the other religions also got pretty much influenced by this Shakti worship. And of course, Jainism was not very far behind in establishing the efficacy of the Devi worship. And in the Jain pantheon of divinities, you have the 24 Tirthankars, the Shasan Devtas, the 24 Yakshis. Then later on, of course, the 64 Yoginis were also included, the Saptamatrikas, the Vidya Devis, etc., etc. They are being worshipped upon to gain multiple kinds of siddhis. Then Chakreshwari, in fact, Ambika and Padmavati. These are the three main deities which are directly related with the tantric practices, where different people worship upon them to gain different kind of occult powers. And for most part, these are the three deities who also are being worshipped as in independent temples also. Okay. This is, of course, Chakreshwari. Here you can find her in her malevolent form, because she's in her multiple arms, she's holding the chakra, etc. She was one of the most popular yakshis of Jain pantheon, and her worship both in ancient and even now it very widespread. All right. Then lastly, we come to Padmavati Yakshi, and we know how close her association is with Tantric cult. Here alone, you can see, this is, of course, from Mahavi temple, I have taken this image. And here you can see multiple armed Padmavati, another aspect of Padmavati here you can see. And there is, different Padmavati Kalpa text, which sets out rituals and the yantras for efficient and successful worship. And it's a living tradition. Even today, most of the Jain temples have a separate independent, shrine for Padmavati in the, area or the precinct. And there is maximum crowd in that, around that shrine. I have often witnessed that, because she's also responsible for prosperity, wealth, and people flocked to the edifice in large numbers. Okay. Okay. So most of the tantric patas that we have spoken about, in fact, they represent different elements, such as the two eyes on the two sides of the Purna Kalash, the tantric seed syllables, presence of goddesses, then the Yakshis, the Vidya Devis, then they all allude to the esoteric or the magico-religious nature of these particular devices. And these rituals were conducted for many reasons. Some ensured good health, prosperity. There were esoteric texts which were transmitted from teacher to pupil, they give the meanings of the mantras and the rules for making the diagrams or yantras which were used in the rituals. So it is also important to, notice here that quite a few of the tantric practices are very, very secretive, especially in the Vedic, parlance, because many a times somebody who is not initiated into the cult, whatever that he reads may altogether, he may derive an altogether different meaning from it, whereas there is a different meaning which will, unfold to the one who's already initiated into it. All right. And in medieval India, hymns were often thought to encode mantras, and rules were given to explain how the mantras were to be extracted from the hymn and how they were to be pronounced. The proper pronouncement of those mantras is also considered to be very, very important. And each verse of a hymn was assigned a ritual diagram. And there are various miracle stories that are told about the efficacy of the reciting of these verses or the mantras and using the yantras or the diagrams. So with this, we have come to the end of this session. Yeah, okay. Thank you.
हाँ, प्रोफेसर पवन जैन, हर बार आश्चर्य होता है कि आप इतने कम समय में कितनी अधिक सामग्री हम लोगों के सामने परोस देती हैं कि उनको वस्तुतः उसको इतने मतलब उसको पचाना जिसे कहते हैं हिंदी में मुश्किल हो जाता है। बहुत अधिक सामग्री आपने आज प्रदान की और कह रही थी कि 1 घंटे में समाप्त कर दूंगी, लेकिन आपके पास तो ज्ञान इतना है, ज्ञान की आप इतना बड़ा ज्ञान भंडार है कि कहीं से भी आप अगर शुरू करें एक थोड़ा सा भी, तो अगर उसी को थोड़ा सा आगे बढ़ाएं तो वो पता नहीं वो कैसे वो एक सामान्य एक छोटे से सरोवर से शुरू होकर के वो ज्ञान का सागर बन जाता है। तो एक आपको बहुत बहुत आभार, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने कितने सारे पट हम लोगों को कितने प्रकार के पट दिखाए और कितने, और उसके आपने सभी के प्रतीकात्मक अर्थ भी बताए, इसके सबके दार्शनिक उनका अर्थ क्या हो सकता है, उसका प्रतीकात्मक अर्थ क्या है, वृत्त क्या है, कुंभ क्या है, आंखों का क्या अर्थ है। आपने तीर्थ पट से प्रारंभ किया, विज्ञप्ति पत्र दिखाए, मैं सबको अब वो उसकी पुनरावृत्ति नहीं करूंगा, सबने तो सुना ही है, ये देखा भी है। तो ये बहुत अधिक इतनी तरह के चित्र होते हैं, इतनी तरह के पट होते हैं, ये तो किसी हम लोगों में से किसी को पता ही नहीं रहा होगा। मैं समझता हूँ कि जितने भी दर्शक या श्रोता आपके साथ में जुड़े हैं वो सबके सब आपके जो है बहुत अधिक आभारी हैं कि उन्होंने इतना विस्तृत जो आज विवेचन प्राप्त किया जैन चित्र पटों का, जिसके ऊपर प्रायः कम ही बोला जाता है, कम ही लिखा जाता है, और कम ही वस्तुतः पुस्तकें उपलब्ध हैं, क्योंकि ये एक स्वयं स्वतंत्र एक विषय है अपने में और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण विषय है, लेकिन बहुत अधिक अज्ञात जैसा भी है कि वस्तुतः इतने प्रकार के चित्रपट होते हैं। ये तीर्थ से लेकर के विज्ञप्ति पत्र, क्षमापना, फरमान आपने दिखाए, फिर ज्ञान पट, और सबसे ज्यादा उसमें बहुत सारे लोगों को ये बहुत रोचक लगा होगा कि हमारा सांप सीढ़ी का जो खेल है वो उसी से निकला है कि किस प्रकार से हम किन किन सीढ़ियों से हम धीरे धीरे ऊपर, किन किन गुणों के द्वारा हम धीरे धीरे ऊपर बढ़ते जाते हैं, बढ़ सकते हैं अपने आत्म तत्व का शोधन करते हुए, और फिर उस परम तत्व को तक पहुंच सकते हैं। जैसे सिद्धशिला जो ऊपर दिखाई गई कि वहां तक हम सिद्धशिला के अधिकारी एक सिद्ध बन सकते हैं आप। और उसके आपने बहुत सारे एक सांप्रदायिक स्पर्धा वाले भी जो सेक्टेरियन आपने दिखाए थे कि उसमें परस्पर एक दूसरे के प्रति एक स्पर्धा भी रही, एक राइवलरी की जो आपने बात कही। एक तांत्रिक पट आपने पार्श्वनाथ जी के और उनके साथ में उनकी यक्षी जो पद्मावती, फिर आयाग पट का आपने चित्रण किया, उसका विवेचन किया, और ये जो विशेष प्रकार से जो बाद में आपका वाला जो अंश था, ये ऐसा है कि बहुत ही कम लोगों को ज्ञात है और बहुत कम इसके विषय में सामग्री पुस्तकों में मिलती है। आयाग पट के बारे में और ये सूर्य पट के बारे में, फिर आप वो प्रत्यंगिरा और वर्धमान विद्या और विजयंत और गणेश जो कि पूर्ण भद्र कहलाते हैं जैन धर्म में, फिर शक्ति पूजा की आपने चर्चा की, सप्तमात्रिका और 64 योगिनी, चक्रेश्वरी, पद्मावती, कितना सब ये था। उसका यदि एक बार हम उसकी तो खैर उसकी पुनरावृत्ति बार बार मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगा कि तो बहुत, लेकिन ये कि मैं समझता हूँ कि आपने आज बहुत अधिक हम लोगों का ज्ञान वर्धन किया और एक ऐसे क्षेत्र में हम लोगों को ले गई जिसके विषय में बहुत कम परिज्ञात है, और इसके लिए हम आपके बहुत आभारी हैं। इसके साथ ही साथ आज आपने हम सारी की सारी आपके पास में जो ज्ञान राशि थी उसका थोड़ा सा अंश आपने इन भाषणों में आदि से लेकर के अंत तक के ये जो इतने सारे भाषण हुए उसमें उसका कुछ अंश लुटा दिया, और जिसे कहते हैं कि जितना जिसने लूट लिया वो उसके पास पड़ गया, उसके पल्ले पड़ गया, और जिसने उसको छोड़ दिया वो उससे वंचित रह गया। तो जिसे संस्कृत हिंदी का दोहा है ना कि ज्ञान राशि जो है वो बिखरी पड़ी है, लूट सके तो लूट, और फिर अंत में कुछ नहीं होता है, क्योंकि जिस समय ग्रहण करने का समय होता है, आयु होती है और क्षमता होती है, उसी समय व्यक्ति ग्रहण कर पाता है। सब लोग सब चीज ग्रहण नहीं कर सकते हैं, और आपके श्रोता जो थे वो सभी के सब मैं समझता हूँ अधिकारी श्रोता थे, और सबने बहुत कुछ ग्रहण किया होगा, बहुत सारी प्रेरणा भी ग्रहण की होगी कि अब इस विषय में और जानें, इस विषय में जो पुस्तकें हैं उनका अवलोकन करें और उसमें और गंभीरता से जाएं, अंदर जाएं, और उसका कि उसका स्वरूप क्या है जैन कला का, और उसके क्या क्या प्रतीकात्मक या सांकेतिक पहलू हैं, इन सब का भी परिचय प्राप्त करें। तो हम आपके बहुत आभारी हैं, धन्यवाद देते हैं। वही आज 6 बजने में 10 मिनट रह गए हैं। आज आप 5 मिनट कम बोली हैं। आपको बोलना तो था 5 बजे तक, और देख लीजिए कि आप के पास
5:30
क्या ज्ञान है।
5:30
अभी तो आप, अगर समय मिलता तो आप अभी समाप्त करने वाली नहीं थी। आपके पास में तो बहुत बहुत अधिक सामग्री है। हम लोग बहुत अनुग्रहित हैं, बहुत आभारी हैं, आपके हृदय से आभारी हैं, जो आपने इतनी अधिक सामग्री हम लोगों को दी। और अब हम, अगर आपके पास समय हो तो एक आध, अगर और किसी की जिज्ञासा हो तो आप उसका समाधान कर सकती हैं। अन्यथा हम इस श्रृंखला को अभी फिलहाल अगले, आज के इस भाषण को
Yeah. So I think we will
समझते हैं।
conclude today because, as I said, I have another meeting.
हाँ, जी,
And I'm open to questions. You can write to me, or probably in the next session we can take them.
ठीक है, ठीक है। तो बहुत धन्यवाद के साथ में हम इसको समाप्त करते हैं।
Thank you, sir.
क्या हो गया?
ओम नमो अरिहंताणम।
सिद्धाश्च सिद्धिस्थिता आचार्य जिनशासनो नतिकरा पूजा उपाध्यायका श्री सिद्धांत सुपाठका मुनिवरा रत्नत्रयाराधका पंचेते परमेष्ठिन प्रति